My name's Harry Dunlop. I'm the high performance hockey coach at the Glasgow School of Sport, and I'm going to talk you through some of the exercises we do and some of our hockey skills. The group are now starting the warm-up. At the School of Sport we tend to use the RAMP principle, R-A-M-P. R stands for razor or pulse raiser, A is activation, M is mobilisation, and P is potentiate. So we move from light activity through some static stretching to more active stretching before returning to running and then take part in the exercise. You can see that we move not just across legs as hockey is a running game, but upper body and arms too. The group are now moving through some high knees and some crossover side steps. Again, this is just through the activation mobilisation stage of a ramp warm-up before we get to potentiate, where they're back into running at a faster rate. Here we're building in some left and right turns and now running through some ladders. This can be done with just hockey sticks if you don't have access to ladders, and is a very, very good warm-up for young hockey athletes. We're now going to move on to ball carry. One of the important aspects is to have the ball in a ready position to the right of our right foot and in front, but notice we hold the left arm and elbow up and the left shoulder high, as if we were balancing a book on our left shoulder. This puts the ball in the correct ready position. When we change direction, we get the ball back into a strong position, left elbow out, left shoulder high, and allows us to be in a good position for vision. The same concept can be built into multi-directional drags. When we're moving with the ball, we can either be moving our feet and the ball doesn't move too much, or we can be moving the ball. This is a very good exercise, what we would call fast feet drills. When we drag the ball, what often happens is it begins as a small movement and then we build into a more dynamic action. So what we'll see is the ball moving quite slowly, not too dynamically or ballistically. This allows the athlete to get control of the ball. Notice we're moving outside a given channel before we move in to moving the ball in live motion and slowly build onto a much longer action where we build in a bound off left or right leg. Here we see the ball moving over a longer area and more of a bound being built in. So it's more of a dynamic live action movement, moving from static into a much more dynamic, fluid action. Very often the defender will realise we're about to perform a drag and will anticipate that and go to engage and tackle us. The trick here is to perform a double or repeat drag, which allows us to do the first drag and then go back in the opposite direction, thus still beating the engaging defender. The next adaptation of a drag would be to build in a V drag. This is where we drag the ball in the shape of a V. If we just move the ball straight across, the defender, if we follow the arc of the defender's stick, will still be able to tackle. However, if we build in a V, which means we take the ball diagonally away from the defender and not just straight across from the defender, will be much more effective. It's important that once we've practiced this skill in isolation, that we put it into action in live gameplay, ideally in a 1v1 scenario. With passing, although we want to pass onto the front stick, it's important that we don't ignore or neglect some of the harder options. So we can pass onto a reverse stick so the player can receive it, and that same player can perhaps pass off his reverse stick. This is sometimes seen as a senior skill and not attempted till later on in the young player's career. In truth, this can be done, and we teach it from S1 forward. Although these players are older, we would teach this from an early stage in the school. Lifting or 3D skills is now a very established part in the game. It can be used anywhere on the pitch, but particularly in the attacking final third when we're going into the opposition 25 or the opposition D. This is where without doubt this skill is most effectively used. It does begin as moving the ball forward and back, but to do the skill well, what we need to do is understand that the most effective way of doing it isn't moving the ball left to right. This simply allows the ball to run up the blade of the stick and we don't have to force the ball forward. What we're now looking at is using a lift as a pass, so this would be a lifted pass sooner than lifting it over an opposition player's stick. Again, we need the ball in motion to allow us to do it. The ball begins to run up the blade of the stick, and sooner than lifting the ball over the defender's stick, we simply throw a low pass. Important here not to throw the ball too high, as we'll find opposition players and umpires will not be happy with that, but as a very low pass simply high enough to go over an intercepting stick. 2v1 is the start of moving into unit play, where we begin to bring basic skills practiced in isolation into team play with other players involved. Once understood and mastered, this skill can be done effectively in most areas of the field. Key part here is understanding your role within it, whether you have the ball and are the ball carrier, or whether you're the player running in support of the ball. But at the end of the 2v1, it must end in either a constructive pass or a realistic goal shot. Shooting is an absolutely key part of modern hockey. To allow a good shot, we first need a good receipt and first touch in the ball, a good ball carry, then to have the ball in the correct position to strike in our strike zone. Good advice would be to prepare early for the shot, so your last 1 to 2 steps into the D incorporate your backswing. Don't wait until you're in the area of the D you want to shoot from before you start this process. You get your hands and the stick in the correct position as you cross the line of the D, so that when the ball gets over, we're on our downswing, the ball's in our strike zone, and we hit cleanly into the net. The key here is to prepare early. As a coach, it's good to build in some skills before we shoot. Very often players are in total isolation, unpressured and taking a shot, and although that's the way we learn to shoot cleanly, it's very unrealistic to the game. So some of the earlier skills we've done in ball carry, left and right drags and V drags should be incorporated over the 25 and the edge of the D before the players go in and shoot.